Hey, fellow mathers. Before we get into this episode, we want to share with you how you can get access to free content, professional learning that will keep your students engaged and doing the math that matters. Get ready to go to this link, mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge.
That's right. Registration is open for the free Math is Figureoutable Challenge that's starting May 15th and runs to the 17th at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to have 3 nights jam-packed with learning and routines that you can take straight to your classroom.
In these challenges, we have a great time. We do some math, talk about classroom experiences, give away super cool bonuses and prizes. You won't just walk away with routines that are naturally engaging and encourage your students to think mathematically. You'll also have a chance to win over $6K worth in prizes, including a few virtual PD sessions for your school. I'll be joined by my wonderful co-host Kim and special guest Jenna Labe.
You can register at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge for a fantastic learning experience. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Now on to the show.
Hey, fellow mathematicians, you're listening to the podcast where math is figureoutable. I'm Pam Harris.
And I'm Kim Montague.
And you found a place where mathematizing is not about memorizing and mimicking, waiting to be told or shown what to do, but mathematizing is about making sense of problems, noticing patterns, and reasoning using mathematical relationships. Y'all, we can mentor mathematicians as we co-create meaning together. Not only are algorithms not particularly helpful in teaching mathematics, but rotely repeating steps actually keep students from being the mathematicians they can be. Y'all, this is our 104th episode. Woo!
Yeah.
2 years of the Math is Figureoutable podcast. We are so excited. What a fantastic journey. Ow!
Pam, I cannot believe that you have roped me into this for 2 years already. It's gone by so fast.
It has, in some ways, so fast. In some ways, not as fast with the whole pandemic and everything. But Kim, I just want to thank you for being the push behind this. I knew there was no way that I could do a podcast on my own because it wouldn't have happened. Because, I'll just tell our listeners, pretty much this happens because Kim says, Pam, sit down, open your calendar. We are scheduling a time to plan the next podcast. We are scheduling a time to record the next podcast. And because she does that, we actually do. And then the podcast is here. So thank you, Kim, for joining me in this wonderful journey.
Absolutely.
I think we're having fun. All right, let's tell everybody about today's episode.
Okay. So in this episode, we thought that we would actually reflect on things that we've talked about and also our professional growth over the years. So here's a chance for us to kind of look back and see where we're headed to.
And be a little vulnerable about some things that we've learned. To be clear, teaching is a profession where you're never done. And teaching teachers is teaching. And that we recognize that there are things that we learn. There are things we improve, that we tweak. And we thought we'd be a little clear about that today. We'll just sort of talk about some things that we've done early on that we don't do anymore and that we do better now. So one of those things has everything to do with some of the language that we use now and the way that we talk about math. You'll notice that in the intro, we talk about mathematizing. Sometimes we'll talk about real math. So one of the things that we learned really early on when I very first started on my journey into numeracy, I was teaching high school math. My kids were growing up and I started working with my kids' teachers and just really doing things in my own personal kids' classrooms. And then the school got wind of it. And I started doing some professional learning with the school. And then the district got wind. And I started doing professional development with the district. And we had about, 11 elementaries at the time. And so I was doing a lot of professional learning with a lot of teachers. And I started hearing teachers say things like Pam Math. Or, I'm doing Pam Math. Or I'm not doing that Pam Math. Or we were at that point in time, the best resource that we had found that was really sort of guiding a lot of what we were doing was Investigations in Data, Number, and Space, which is a fantastic resource. And especially at the time, I think it was the best thing that was out there. And we started hearing teachers say, "Oh, investigations math. Yeah, we do investigations math here." And for a while, it bothered me, and I wasn't quite sure why. I was trying to figure out what was sort of tweaking me about that. And I began to realize this sounds kind of, I don't know, too much hubris or something, but that I wasn't going to be there forever. And that I wanted this movement to continue, that I wanted
Sure.
the idea of teaching real math and actually teaching the mathematizing that we could mentor students to be mathematicians, that I wanted that idea to continue on past me, that if I wasn't going to be there doing professional learning, I wanted to have an informed citizenry enough that the teachers really understood what was going on enough that when, for whatever reason, I wasn't there anymore, that it would continue. That, I had 4 kids. They were in the district. They were still growing up. I wanted, and not just for them, but, for my community and frankly, for the world at large. I don't want it can't be about a person. It has to be about real math and mathematizing, and that we can mentor teachers and students to be
Yeah.
mathematicians. And I learned that a little late in the game at the district, but I started to tell teachers and be much more clear about how this is not Pam Math. It's math is figure outable. It's not about Pam Harris Math.
Yeah.
The name of the website, the URL, all the things is math is figure outable. It's about
Yeah.
math and real math and mentoring mathematicians. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about all of us changing the way that we view math to be the real view.
Yeah.
And to second that, there was just recently one of our Journey Leader members. So we have Journey Leaders where we support the leaders of mathematics and mathematics teaching. And one of our Journey Leaders came to me and said kind of an interesting similar message, where she had gone back to her region. So she was a leader over a region, and had gone back to the people that she worked with in the region, other leaders, and was really excited about what she was learning, and called it Pam Math, or talked about Pam Harris, and had somebody say to her, "Look, we don't care about that Pam Harris person. We care about math." And she was talking to me, and she said, "I realized it can't be about you." It was kind of a funny conversation, because I was agreeing with her, and she's like, "Oh, no, like, no offense or anything." I was like, no, none taken. Correct. Like, it can't be about a person or people. It has to be about real math, with the nature of mathematics and what it means to know and do and own mathematics. And so that's something that I learned early on. Hopefully we've been clear enough about it in the podcast. If we haven't been, we'll continue to be as clear as we possibly can. Yeah.
That's so good. It's good
Thank
that
you.
you recognize that that's kind of what people were thinking in their heads, and you could kind of divorce yourself from like, wait, whoa, that's not what the message that I'm trying to share.
One more word I want to throw in there is development. The idea that we are developing students, and we're developing, our brains are developing, and we're helping develop. It's not about unzipping heads and pouring in math.
Yeah.
But another big idea that I want to just make sure is part of this movement, the Math is Forgettable movement, is that it's about development.
Yeah, that's good. Well, actually, I'm glad that you said that, because can I tell you about something that I can reflect on now and have learned so much over the years about? So I think we've shared that I was a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade teacher, and then spent some time outside of the classroom doing some coaching on an individual campus. And I, like, when you look back and you're like, wow, that was really not a great move, and not, you can see it like later
Own
in
it. You can
hindsight.
own it.
Yeah. Can totally own it. So, one of the things that I can reflect on now is that the time that I spent coaching early on was just not great. I was so excited when I was in, when we met, and when we were introduced, I was introduced to kind of experience teaching real math. I like, you've mentioned before that, like, kind of mess with numbers a lot, but I certainly in my early years didn't know how to teach this way. I didn't know how to teach real math. It was kind of like, I was attempting to teach where I had always been, how I had been taught. And when I had the opportunity to talk with other teachers about it, I was really excited, and I wanted to share everything. And like, I wanted to, they knew that I was kind of, mathy or whatever. And I did an awful lot of information dump on people. And I was very clear in my mind at the time that if I just explained a lot And if I just like help you write lesson plans and told you all the things to say and do, that you were going to equally own what I owned. And I look at that now and I think, wow, that was really probably arrogant and also just so misinformed about what coaching really is. I attempted to do model lessons and with no conversation, and I just would swoop in and like, here, make this magic happen. And it was just so misinformed
You
about,
taught really good model lessons, and
well, I tried.
the teachers in the back may have been like grading
Yeah,
or
I
even
just,
walk out of
yes,
the room
yes, yes.
or kind of watch it happen and be like, huh, all right, that's what you do. I'll go
Yeah,
back to what I do.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so
What I
interesting. Go, keep going.
No, I was just going to say what I didn't do was ask questions, right? I didn't ask the areas that they wanted to grow in. It was just so misinformed.
Well, so you've told me so many times, know your content, know your kids.
Yeah.
And so in a huge way, you knew your content.
Mhm.
But because you weren't asking questions and asking them about how they wanted to grow and learn, you kind of
Mhm.
didn't know your kids.
Mhm.
Like you
For
didn't know
sure.
the people that you were teaching.
Yeah.
You just knew the thing and you're like, I'm just going to come and dump this on you.
Mhm.
And so while you were really clear about teaching kids, teaching real math, that you're not going to unzip their heads and dump
Yeah.
stuff in, pour stuff in.
Oh, I
But yet
sure did that.
But boy, teaching teachers, I think both of
Yes.
us have had experiences where we had to like think really hard about the fact, oh, it's teaching. And
Yeah.
if what we believe about teaching is that it's about experience and helping create mental connections based on what you already know, and then giving you more experience and putting you in positions where we're intentionally causing disequilibrium, and we're giving you a chance to like make sense of things and grapple with ideas, and so your brain literally gets more and more sophisticated as in its reasoning because you have more and more connections. That's what learning is. Then it
Mhm.
has to be that way with adults as well.
Right.
That as we
Absolutely.
teach teaching, we teach teaching the same way that we believe about
Yeah,
teaching math.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both share that one.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of telling in our early years.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why you and I both balked about doing a podcast, because
Yeah.
it's so like, how do you not just tell in a podcast? So y'all give us some feedback at some point, times where you're like, Pam, I think you guys were just telling right there. And then we'll try to undo it, and we'll try to give you some better experiences. Hopefully we've done a little bit of that here, a little bit. So what do you do now, Kim? I know we've worked with some schools
Yeah.
lately where we've done some coaching. What are some ways that you coach now that's different than you did
Well, it
then?
absolutely will start with visiting with teachers, right? Like I'm gonna have a conversation and experience their world. So I'm in their classes and I'm in like spending time with their students and spending time with them. And there's a lot more of a co-plan, co-teach kind of cycle situation. And really it's about taking teachers from where they are to where they want to go. And because I know the mathematical terrain and the kind of teaching terrain, like I can help guide that,
Mm-hmm.
but is not a situation where I'm dragging them along like it would have been, early on, or just dumping knowledge that they're not prepared to pick up.
Yeah, nice. And speaking of asking people questions and sort of understanding where they are, one of the things that we've just been talking about a lot is the idea of talking, how do I say this? Of creating shared vocabulary where we're actually
Hmm.
clear what each other means.
Yeah.
For example, we just did an episode 101. We did a whole episode about the word strategy,
Yeah.
because you and I became clear the more that we were talking with people that when I would say something about strategy, that there was a high probability that teachers were thinking about one of at least 4 definitions of strategy.
Hmm.
And so check out episode 101 if you want to hear kind of what those 4 different ways of talking about strategy are.
Hmm.
But we need to define terms, and not just in some, here's a vocabulary word, let me give you a definition, but we need to have common experiences so
Yep.
that we actually have common definitions for terms. So that as we're discussing things like, for example, modeling, in episode 58, we talked all about the word model and modeling. I've had several conversations with a lot of really good mathematics teacher educators about modeling. And I now realize that where I thought I was communicating, I wonder big time if we were talking past each other, because we don't have, there's so many different ways to talk about models and modeling. And so again, that's why we put out episodes like episode 58, where let's define terms. Let's give us experiences with those, with the vocabulary that we're using, the way we're describing things, so that then as we work together, we're actually working together with some common understandings.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said experiences, because another thing that I feel like I've really learned over the years is that we can't assume teacher knowledge. And I don't think that that means that I'm going to assume that teachers don't have any knowledge about mathematics, but we have different experiences. We have different upbringings, and we have different levels of experience. And for some of our teachers, math is just one subject out of many that they're trying to tackle. And so, maybe some people have more mathematical expertise than others. And so, I can't assume that just because something is in their standard that they know it as deeply as the next person. And so it requires a conversation. It requires getting to know teachers and like helping them unpack like maybe some of their previous worries about mathematics, and helping them to understand that they can mathematize and they can teach real math.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Can I also share, you mentioned earlier about helping us get the podcast going. I just want to mention that one of the things that you've helped me the most with over the years is kind of getting stuff out of my head. And what I mean by that is that, I kind of always thought about numbers and relationships and patterns, but I absolutely early on had no way of representing that thinking. And we may have mentioned this before, but once I saw ratio tables and had
Bam!
an opportunity to see different models that we love, I was able to represent kind of some sloppy thinking that was like rolling around in my brain. And so I thank you for that, because you brought models to me that I had never seen before. And it was like this awakening for what was happening inside that now I could put down on paper. And that's been a huge growth for me.
And it's not just the fact that you could put it on paper. It sharpens, like you said a second ago, sloppy thinking. As you are able to represent it, and then we can have conversations about it, and then do more with it. That just sharpens all that thinking, makes all the connections stronger and deeper, and more connections and more relationships. And that's been a lot of fun. I think you and I work well together, because one of the things we do is, like, how are you thinking about that? And then I'll try to represent it, and you'll try to represent it. And then I'll try to represent my thinking. And we're both really willing to kind of go with each other. And here's how we don't handle it. So here's another thing I think, I don't know that, how do I say this? Another thing I think I've learned is that, like you said, teachers have different levels of expertise in different things, is to not respond with oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All
Pretty
right.
horrible.
So I get, like, there's so many times where I'm talking to teachers, and they'll say something or do something, and I'll go, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm not sure I've thought about it that way. And they'll look at me like, wait, aren't you supposed to like know everything?
Yeah.
And no.
Right. Right.
Can we free everybody up from the idea that if we teach math, we know all math, and we own all connections all the time, everywhere. And so this idea of being able to respond with like, oh, that's interesting, instead of, oh, shame on you that you didn't know that.
Right.
I wonder if that might help us all feel a little bit more willing to be vulnerable in kind of the connections that we do own, and some that we own a little more tenuously that we would like to strengthen. And that would be an okay thing. Because we don't believe that it's about unzipping heads and pouring information in. We believe that it's more about putting purposeful patterns in front of students. One of the things that I'm just sharpening lately is that I'm thinking about how to talk to people, how to help people understand why problem strings and the rich tasks that we like are so impactful and different than maybe what I see happening in so many classrooms. And I think that I'm beginning to develop a way of talking about this idea of putting patterns in a purposeful way in front of students. And then following that with a very purposeful set of patterns. And we talked about Rich Tassin a few episodes ago, where we talked about being replete with patterns. So taking situations that have just a ton of patterns, but putting them in front of students in very purposeful ways. So in bite-offable chunks, and then asking questions that invite students to grapple with those patterns, and then use those relationships to solve a further problem. And then as they solve that further problem, it sharpens the connections in that pattern. And then they can use that relationship. And then we start to generalize the relationship. And I wonder if, I don't know how people hear what I just said, but I wonder if that helps describe just a little bit of how this math is forgettable movement is trying to engage teachers in a way of teaching that is different than unzipping heads, pouring information in, and asking kids to mimic what we just poured in. So that's I'm on the edge of that. That's at my cutting edge right now, is where I'm trying to figure out ways of helping in a quick way. What I've usually done, Kim, is what we've tried to do on this podcast, is give teachers experience. And so I'll do a workshop or a presentation where it's like, all right, you don't care who I am or what I do, as long as I do it well, here we go. And then we'll dive right in and we'll do some math. And by the end of that experience, teachers are like, well, that's different.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to put some words then to the experience that they just had, as try to encapsulate. How is that different maybe than the way that we were taught?
Yeah, that's great. So in this anniversary edition, I'm going to ask you just like, what are some things that you're excited about? What's currently going on for you that you are excited about? We told about our past, but what's in the future?
All right. So by pick, I'm thrilled with how our journey group and our journey leader group is we are just having such an engaged community, and all the wonderful things that we've been able to do. I don't know if you can appreciate when I am do a workshop with teachers, something live, I meet them for the first time. It's the first interaction that we've had. And so I do the thing, it's like, here's the bang, here's the presentation I've done several times. I've got all the jokes timed and everything, but then maybe I'll, for example, I'm doing some work with some teachers in Utah right now. And so I'll go back 2 or 3 times. And on the 4th time that I'm there, like, we really get to start to dive a little deeper, and we get to do a little bit more. But let's be honest, usually with teachers, it's about as far as we go. And I get it. That's just the nature of the beast, is that you don't get this longer, prolonged a chance to interact with people. So one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for the work that I did in the state of Texas over the past 15 years, because we had some experiences where I was able to work with teachers for years and leaders across the state for years. And so we really built up some wonderful relationships, and we could go deeper. That's what I'm trying to talk about here with Journey. So in Journey, we're able to go deeper. We're able to do things because we're together for longer periods of time. We have more experience, and we can build on kind of those initial experiences to deeper. So that's one thing that I'm just thrilled that we're being able to go deeper and deeper, and do more and more topics, and more connections within those topics, and more K-12 vertical work. And just, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's great.
And speaking of vertical work, just this is a smaller thing, but we've just created a downloadable graphic of the development of mathematical reasoning. A lot of leaders were asking us to be able to print it out so they could use it in training with their teachers, or put it up in their office so that people could see it. And so if you'd like to download that graphic, it's totally available. You can get it at mathisfigureoutable.com/DMR graphic, like developing mathematical reasoning graphic. So mathisfigureoutable.com/DMR graphic is just a downloadable, printable version of that development of mathematical reasoning graphic. I will say, small caveat, we don't necessarily intend for you to hang this up in your classroom.
Right.
I might entertain if you have a really good, it's not really intended for students. It's really intended for teachers. So yeah, just a small caveat there. And then maybe I'll just mention one other thing that I'm thrilled about. We have online asynchronous workshops that we've been putting out. So far, we've got Building Addition for Young Learners for K2, and Building Powerful Multiplication for grades 3 and up, and Building Powerful Division for grades 3 and up, and Building Powerful Proportional Reasoning for middle grades. But we haven't yet had a workshop for high school. And I'm so thrilled that we are creating and almost ready to put out Building Powerful Linear Functions. And I think it may be my best work. I'm just so excited to, I think I think the work at the high school level is tricky and interesting and detailed in a way that it is just different than other. Anyway, I'm very excited to be able to put that out. I'm knee deep in creating that right now, and it's kind of all I'm thinking about right now. It's very, very excited about building powerful linear functions.
So fantastic. Yep.
So we've learned a little bit, and hopefully we can share, hopefully us sharing today with some things that we learned over time gives everybody a little bit more permission, and not that you need it from us, but a little bit more of like, it's okay that we're all learning, we're all growing. When we know better, we can do better. And Kim, I'm so grateful that you have been on this journey with me, especially this last 2 years, the 2nd year anniversary of our podcast. Thanks.
Unbelievable, right?
Woo! Yeah. So y'all, if you want to learn more math and mathematics for teaching, then join the Math is Figureoutable movement. Thank you for tuning in, teaching more and more real math, and spreading the word that math is figureoutable. Thank you for listening and making math more figureoutable.
To learn even more, make sure you register for our free challenge at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. You are not going to want to miss the evenings of May 15th through 17th, starting at 7 p.m. Central.
Math teaching, go register now. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Join us to make math more and more figureoutable. And if you can't join live, register and we'll send you access to the recordings. We'll see you there.